we're put together as a business unit to bring innovative news and entertainment-based digital products to market. In two different areas, in the news business and in the television and entertainment business. We're working on several innovations in both areas. Newsbeat is one of them. As far as I'm concerned, I come from quite a bit of internet products background. Several years I've spent at Yahoo. Most recently, I spent a couple of years at a cloud company called RingCentral. And I worked on several products in the past in consumer search, web search, social media, and some of the listings-based businesses like the job listings as part of Yahoo as well.
Why would a mobile smartphone user want to use Newsbeat? What's the concept behind it?
So the concept behind it is that there are people that listen to radio, and mostly they listen to radio over their car radio systems while commuting. And over the last several years, there has been no innovation in how radio-based news gets delivered. It's been like this for probably years, if not decades. And if you look at the last 4 or 5 years, people are getting used to streaming their content and streaming over their mobile, over their data plan. Almost 30–40% of the internet, not only internet, the entire US population does stream radio. That's a pretty big statistic considering it's everybody in the country. So I think the time is right for people to consume news over a mobile-based app, as opposed to what gets built into their car. And some of the benefits, really, just not the medium change, are that people also are expecting more personalized news, things that they like, rather than things, the topics and coverage that the newsrooms think people like. And newsrooms are adapting to that. They monitor, of course, the trending nature of topics and social media and such. But at the foundational level, user level personalization is something that people are expecting and wanting to use a mobile app to get, as opposed to the status quo.
And the app lets me select categories of news, correct?
Right. So Newsbeat lets you select categories like sports, politics, etc. It also lets you select topics. Let's say if you are interested in rugby, you can select the topic of rugby. And if there is newsworthy article, story on that day about that topic, we will play that for you up front. And you can, as you use the app and you encounter stories that you like, you can pick out the relevant topics and keep building your portfolio of topics. And over time, you have expressed enough to your personalization profile to us that we can bring in more and more relevant content over time. So topics, categories, and also sources. So people have liking for certain sources because they grew up with them or they heard it from friends and whatnot. They can tell us what sources they like, and we will go and fetch the content from those sources, obviously, with permission and so on, and prioritize those sources for each of the users. So if the same story got broke by 2 or 3 outlets, they have articles that are equally good, we will show you the content from the source you like covering the same topic, for example. There are several implicit signals. You can, as you listen to the program, we obviously get signals on what you're listening to and what you're skipping, and accordingly, we have the capability to prioritize stories for each individual users. So fundamentally, the personalization is the difference, and comprehensiveness of coverage of topics and sources is a way to be able to personalize across thousands of interest profiles out there.
When I logged on to Newsbeat a while ago, Brian and Leslie had news for me. Now that is computer reading, right? Computer generated anchors.
Yeah. So I think that's another key pivot that's occurring out there. Radio is a voice medium; it's a driver product, and that means eyes-free, hands-free. Great for advertisers because users are very receptive to receiving a message in that kind of mode. But that means it's an audio product. For us to be able to cover thousands of topic areas, we need to be able to do a very good, high quality text-to-speech engine. In addition to human narration, we do almost 250, 300 news stories every day with real people. Of course, not everybody is going to be interested in all the same 200, 300 articles. So you will hear a small percentage of stories narrated by text-to-speech engines, and we've got very good feedback about the quality of what we have done. So we're very, very encouraged. It's still beginning. It's still evolving. Technology, more or less is good for listening. I think it can get a lot better in the future.
I was impressed with the improvement of text-to-speech from earlier examples of this.
Yeah,
it's getting more natural sounding. Is that the idea?
Yeah, the key is to get the natural inflections in voice, intonations. It's still very programmed intonations, right? It doesn't know a happy story from a sad story, but it does know how to read like a human would read without emotion, right? I think it's entirely possible to have that kind of a sports intonation, that kind of like political news intonation, that kind of financial news intonation, and we can create these personas over time that know how to read different kinds of stories. Right now, it's very kind of neutral, very matter of fact, has no bias, which is actually a good thing if you look at it in one way. And what I have noticed is from my own personal use over the last few months is that you get used to it to a point where that is not an issue. In fact, it actually removes any bias introduced by the person delivering the message and gets the news to you in its purest form, as if you have printed the article in black and white. It has no bias in its presentation. So it's kind of interesting. It's kind of it's the same effect as if you're reading the article except you're listening to it.
Will we eventually replace human news anchors?
I don't think so. I think you will have human curators for sure. I think the role will change over time. You have to be a lot more responsive to what users are feeling and listening and so on. Human anchors are essential. But the way you produce a human-anchored story may be changing. It's no longer, Glenn Beck or Anderson Cooper doing their thing. The keyword being their thing. It's no longer their thing. It's really about a person kind of representing a newsroom rather than a person representing himself or herself.
On my feed here in Omaha, it knows I'm here, so it gave me local traffic up front and local weather. Will local news depend on partnerships with news organizations?
Yeah, so we source news from a syndication platform. So we are licensing this content. There is someone that is pulling all this news together and giving us a feed. So our job is to identify what sources are interesting in what locations. And we have done that legwork up front already. So if you are in Denver, you will hear local Denver sources. Some of them are online, some of them are print, some of them are broadcast, so on and so forth. But you will get local sources regardless of where you are, assuming there is a source, in print around there. We do carry about half the overall number of dailies printed in the country in the system. We are yet to get into the other half, real small dailies in the rural areas, but of the top 100 print sources, we carry about 75 of them. Several online sources, obviously, there are not that many reputable online sources yet. The broadcast news from the stations carried by Tribune Network, we carry that. And the weather you talk about, traffic, is really data from online sources. We get weather from another source.
And I heard more than just news. I heard Mashable stories. I heard comedy bits.
Yeah, that's to lighten things up. So Mashable is an online source. It's as much of a news source as any. But the comedy bits and the Brian and Leslie, and there are music markers between stories. We put a lot of thought into creating a familiar radio listening experience, so that it's not jarring for those that are moving over from radio to this. It looks and sounds like you're listening to radio, except you can skip over stories, and this is radio built just for you, right? So part of that is jokes, and we wanted to get that organic feel to the whole product, that there is quirkiness, there is some unexpected areas of delight, and these markers help you get that familiar feel of a radio station.
I also saw HuffPo, so as a blogger, will my blog potentially be read on Newsbeat sometime if I'm good enough?
Of course. Of course, see, that's the thing. The web has made it easy for you to reach your audience. At the same time, you cannot force your way to your audience either. So can the blog be on this? Of course it can be, but users have to want it. Otherwise, there's no good having it on there. So that's one of the things we attempt to do quite a bit, is to go and attempt to have a handshake with the publishers themselves directly, saying, hey, we have your content, now help us bring this content to your audience. And it needs to be a two-way conversation for this to work. Otherwise, the content being on Newsbeat is of no use. So we are actually adding features to onboard content to Newsbeat from any blog that is out there. We're happy to have everything in Newsbeat, and we will let the users make the choice of listening to your blog, if they choose to, in their commute.
And it also seems to me that having looked at some other people working in this area of radio news, I've talked with Rivet in Chicago and CBS, which is trying to kind of bring its news radio kind of content across, that there is a healthy marketplace now for mobile app listeners?
Yeah, I think so. Quite a few attempts are being made, no question about it. Everyone has its own take, and you mentioned Rivet. They do it in a different way. They're kind of focusing on Chicago market, really. And it's going to be a combination of this, the creativity around the format of delivery. It's a combination of that plus, technology prowess on how well you can customize the playlist for each of the users, and also business modeling. You can create a great product, but unless you have a business that can kind of sustain that product, you have not much runway, right? So I think from all the attempts being made out there, these three things coming together is what's going to win over a long term.
And I wanted to touch on that before we run out of time, because when I was in Chicago in September and October, I visited Tribune for a day and saw the video operation that's expanding there.
Mm-hmm.
the digital operation that's expanding. It seems to me, and please correct me or respond, that what newspapers have going for them is this that they have a lot of content.
Uh-huh.
So does Newsbeat sort of fit into this overall business model of really leveraging that ability and that content?
I think so. Newsbeat is envisioned to be a completely different product from everything that Tribune does. Uh, it's not envisioned to be an extension of Chicago Tribune or a paper or any of those. It's really a new way of thinking about publishing in its core. It happens to be voice, but nevertheless, it is a distinctive publishing medium. So it's a doors wide open. Anybody can come in and participate and be a part of it. Big, small, Tribune or not, it's all we're agnostic to that. In fact, I think the more the merrier to cater to a wide variety of users. So yeah, I mean, I don't think of this as something that Tribune should do just for Tribune.
Is there sort of a time frame within your business model? I mean, will you know 18 months down the road, 2 years down the road, 3 or more, that this is going in the direction that you predict?
I think this is a multi-year thing. And I say that because people need to start expecting something like this. And they haven't seen, most of the users haven't seen a product that kind of is trying to deliver news in a different way, especially in the radio segment. I mean, the people have seen the buzz feeds, people have seen, in the reading realm, there, a lot of people have seen the innovations, but not in voice. So I think people will start to see it and then start to expect it and then start to reject the old products. I think that cycle is going to be several years. And if you look at parallels with music, it has taken 5, 6, 7 years for companies like Pandora, iHeartRadio to get to this point of being normal. That to use Pandora is going to be normal. It's no longer a CD case in your car. And I think that's the end point, maybe even beyond that I foresee. And that is a several years journey. What we aim to do in the next few years is to make this product an expected product. People should start to say, I want to see something like Newsbeat or something, maybe Newsbeat, right, as a standard almost. And there will be some varieties of what we do. And that's the stage we should expect to see in a couple of years.
Would it be large city commuters with long commute times that would be the earliest of adopters for this?
I think so, yeah. And we see quite a bit of adoption on weekends. People like to listen to something in the background while they, especially in summer, out and about and nothing good on TV. We see that a lot. We see pre-commute engagement, and I kind of in an interesting way, people like the newspapers and they don't subscribe to them anymore. And yet they like the papers, and they like the content that's in there. So they turn on our app in the morning before commute to replace that experience of consuming news in the morning without the paper actually in their doorstep. So while they're getting ready for work and so on and so forth, people ask for features like, can you have an alarm in this app where it just turns on and starts to play news for me. So we see pre-commute engagement pattern. We see the weekend kind of background media pattern as well. But commute is still the main reason people get our app. We see them using most during commute, and that's I think going to be there for the next couple of years.
So this is my new alarm clock radio, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I don't see, Best Buy selling alarm clocks anymore. So this is what you have to deal with. Yeah.
But I think coming back to the idea that I can over time customize and refine, it really does put the user in charge of making the editorial decisions then about what to listen to.
That's right. That's right. And the user is in charge of selecting what news they want to hear, and there are very few products that are out there that let them do that in a genuine way. If you are if you are someone that has a very specific interest, you have to go seek that information or news. And you may have some favorite blogs or sites and such, but you have to go seek it out. For something like an audio program, people are not in the mode of seeking out. This is something people expect to come at them while they're just there listening. And that's the key core.
Will there be any advertising that I have to put up with?
Yeah, of course. Again, that's another behavioral shift. People anticipate news without paying anything for it. Therein lies the challenge, has been a challenge for 10 years now, almost. But Sirius charges a fee for their services. We anticipate that there will be both ad-based models and subscription models. We have to show value to users before we charge. Until then, it's going to have to be advertising.
Good. And then the last question I have is, I did notice I shared a story on Facebook just to try that out. So social is a part of this, the idea of users pushing favorite stories out to their social networks on Facebook and Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much a par for the course. So we do it. There are some interesting things we can do in the social realm. How much of this is us dreaming things up versus what users actually want? We don't know yet. There has not been a vibrant social network other than maybe SoundCloud that deals with audio just yet. So we need to feel out what the users want to do with social networks, with news. There are some interesting concepts like micro broadcasts and things of that nature, where if you are a blogger and you actually have a voice that you think people would want to have a lot closer contact with you, and want to listen you speak rather than read, that you can be a broadcaster without a ham radio, right? And that is inherently a social thing, where you have an audience following that want to listen to you. It could be just 20 people. Still, you are a broadcaster. So concepts like that exist and are interesting. Whether users are ready for them or wanting them, I don't know yet.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see how this develops. I think it's an interesting app so far. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you about or that we haven't talked about that you think is important for people to know?
Well, I think you've touched on most of them. It is really about a personalized news product. It gets you the news that you care about rather than what the radio station thinks. It matches you at your level of curiosity. It matches you at your level of intelligence. And it treats your information sacred and your time as sacred. And we're not here to kind of push a story that we think you'll like. So this product is about the user and what they want to hear. And then this product is about timeliness. It's about breaking news rather than features. That's something that we haven't talked about. In a way, it's not about how to lose weight in 15 pounds in 10 days or top 10 big mistakes that people make while interviewing, how to save on taxes. This is not that. This is about what Obama said in the morning. It is about that breakthrough cancer research report that came out last night. This is about financial news. what you see in newspaper day to day, that's what you will get here. So this is about news in its purest form that users want to get based on their preferences. And built for commuters, so as usual.
And just one last clarification, your data analytics then feed back into algorithms that help you refine this over time, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like creating a Pandora every day. So any day you have 7, 10, 15,000 stories, articles in the news business, if you take just a country level. It's not that many, actually. And they are all useless tomorrow. And there are 300 million people in the country, so they all have different tastes. So we have to match a few thousand stories every day to a few million people, individual to individual. So yeah, it is a very interesting algorithmic problem. That's where it's the success is going to depend on technology as much as anything else here.
So timeliness of all those news values is important. Is
exactly
is most important in this cycle, right?
Exactly. We're not a magazine. If you were to put it in those terms, we are a news bulletin. We're not a magazine, and that's why we're creating one magazine per person every single day. One news report per person every single day. And that's a computing challenge, actually, that has been solved. It's not particularly complicated computing problem. Nobody has applied this sort of science to audio news just yet.